In ancient Egypt, beneath the grandeur of temples and the silent gaze of colossal statues, lay a justice system that operated with ruthless precision. The mighty Nile, which once nurtured the land's flourishing civilization, now bore witness to some of the darkest aspects of its society, a system in which the consequences of betrayal and defiance could result in unimaginable punishment. Though Egypt's history is often celebrated for its monumental achievements in architecture and governance, its shadowed corners were far from divine. For women, the oppressive weight of their status in society could lead to cruel and merciless retribution when they crossed those in power. And though the greatest monuments stand as eternal testaments to glory, the whispers of these women's suffering have been buried, often ignored in favor of more flattering tales. This is no fiction. What follows is not a myth or a legend, but a dark truth from the annals of one of the most powerful empires in the world. The punishments inflicted upon these women were as brutal as they were symbolic. Their fate, irrevocably sealed by the winds of vengeance, would leave a mark on history that time could not erase. In the land of the Pharaohs, women were often seen as secondary, subservient to the whims of men and the divine patriarchal order. The ancient Egyptians, despite their renowned reverence for female deities like Isis and Hathor, reserved harsh consequences for those who defied the rigid social structure. Born to powerful families, many women had little agency over their lives, tethered to the decisions of their fathers, husbands, and sons. But some, like Cleopatra, could rise to power, commanding armies and shaping history. Yet for every Cleopatra, countless others were silenced, often in ways too horrifying to be remembered. The justice system in Egypt, while sophisticated, was equally merciless. Records from papyri discovered along the Nile reveal that crimes committed by women, especially those involving betrayal or defiance of social norms, were met with the most severe consequences. The legal texts from the 18th dynasty reveal that the law was neither forgiving nor just in matters of adultery or betrayal. Yet, it was often women who bore the brunt of this cruelty. But this was only the beginning. As Egypt's rulers tightened their control over both men and women, the severity of punishments grew ever more vicious. A woman's status was of utmost importance, and those who threatened the stability of this order were often subjected to unimaginable fates. Adultery, theft, and perceived insults to the royal family were some of the crimes that could lead to execution. In the case of women, these acts were often punished in ways designed to humiliate and strip them of their humanity. The punishment for such crimes, far from simple, was calculated to remind others of the immutable authority of the crown. For many, their misdeeds were punished with flogging, but for women of higher status, the consequences were far worse. Execution was not merely a consequence, it was a statement. Whether by impalement, drowning, or burning, the acts of brutality were not intended solely as punishment, but as a method of maintaining absolute control. The stage was set for the most notorious and symbolic punishment that a woman could face in ancient Egypt was the fate of being buried alive. Though buried in the shifting sands of time, the records of such events still linger. According to the Judicial Papyrus of Turin, women who were accused of treason, adultery, or even speaking ill of the pharaoh were subjected to this fate. Imprisoned in a tomb, often without so much as a trial, these women were left to die in utter isolation. The process, though swift in some cases, could take days as the victim slowly suffocated, surrounded by darkness, her body sealed within the cold stone walls of an ancient crypt. Chroniclers like Herodotus later recorded the brutality of Egyptian punishments, noting that such actions were carried out with the full support of the ruling class. In some instances, women who had defied the pharaoh's will were simply drowned, suffocated beneath the weight of their betrayal, left to float downstream where their bodies would wash up on the banks of the Nile, a ghastly reminder of the pharaoh's power. A case in point, recorded in papyri from the reign of Amenemhat II, tells the story of a noblewoman accused of plotting against the pharaoh. She was sentenced to die by drowning, her body cast into the Nile to be consumed by the very river that had once sustained the land. This method, though grim, carried with it an additional layer of symbolism, for it mirrored the fate of the countless lives taken by Egypt's unyielding justice system. This was no ordinary execution. It was a calculated dismantling of the body and spirit, a reminder that even the most powerful were not immune to the whims of the divine and the throne. For those who survived such punishments, there was no redemption. The act of burying women alive, drowning them, or leaving them to suffer alone in desolate tombs was a message, a sharp and unyielding reminder to the population that the wrath of the Pharaoh was absolute, and any attempt to defy it was met with brutality. The legacy of such punishments cannot be underestimated. It is not just the pain inflicted upon the victims, but the sheer terror that these actions inspired in the hearts of the people. The memory of such punishments haunted Egypt for generations, leaving a scar on the collective consciousness. Modern scholars have often been reticent to explore the full implications of these practices, perhaps in fear of confronting the brutality inherent in this ancient justice system. But the truth remains clear. These punishments, no matter how horrific, were integral to the Pharaoh's iron rule, and their legacy endures, albeit whispered among the sands of time. The history of ancient Egypt is as vast as the desert sands, yet the darkness of its judicial punishments still lingers beneath its monumental stones. We must reflect on the terrifying nature of power when left unchecked, a force capable of corrupting even the most sacred of societies. In Egypt, the position of women was fragile, and when they threatened the foundation of that structure, the consequences were nothing short of brutal. But what lessons can we take from this? Are we any less susceptible to the manipulations of power today? The pharaohs, though long gone, remain in the whispers of history, their legacies reminding us of the ever-present dangers of unchecked authority. Perhaps, like the Nile, power always carries the risk of sweeping away those caught in its currents. The question is, will we learn from the past? Comment below to share your thoughts on this dark chapter in history. The history of power is written not in ink, but in the blood of its victims.